Hello, me again, Tam of the TamBoTC channel. I just came off of my previous video and I'm doing this. I had stuff written down and looked into with this. Um, so I was looking into, because one thing that I don't always include when I talk about Cyberpunk and CDPR's development time is COVID did hit during some of their development time and even during their development into the updates and patches and such. That is something that I have forgotten most of the time and probably shouldn't have. But yeah, I wanted to talk more in depth about that because there's a lot of interesting things to still take away from this too. So I was looking into this. Cyberpunk 2077 was released in December of 2020, I think December 5th. COVID hit supposedly in 2020, early 2020. It says January, but I remember March, at least for my town. March was when we started putting on masks and social distancing and all that stuff. And they did have a delay. I don't know how many delays they've had, but I know they have had a delay. Usually that's not always a great sign for the games, but maybe it's kind of push that we can kind of forget that, as long as it's just the one delay and it was mostly because of COVID. So then it says people got back together as early as April 2021, from what I've been looking up. But you still kind of have a couple of years of development, and from some of the articles I pulled up, like this one from eTechnics, CD Projekt Red says COVID-19 isn't affecting Cyberpunk 2077. CD Projekt Red has said that while the developer is encouraging home working, there are no fears of a delay to Cyberpunk 2077, which is ironic. They did have a delay. And then we got a GameSpot article that covers all of the Cyberpunk 2077 delays, so I'm guessing there were multiple. Cyberpunk 2077 has been a long time coming, and CD Projekt Red keeps making it a little longer. So they apparently had multiple even before the, and of course there's crunch time too, and that was not a good thing. But it seems like every game company has that problem now, and which is so stupid. Let's see, we also got CDPR update on COVID-19. This is from CD Projekt Red's site themselves. Dear all, many of you are probably wondering how things are at CD Projekt Red and how COVID-19 influences our day-to-day operations. Here's a short update. Over the past week, we have been adapting to the situation. I'm guessing it cuts off, sadly. So I'm going to add that. I don't know what it actually says. And I also have this I think was also from GameSpot, part of their article. More specifically, CDPR pointed out that it canceled all of its scheduled appearances at trade shows and conferences, including PAX East and GDC. Additionally, it conducted business meetings virtually instead of in person. The article posted April 8th, 2020. And here's an irony I found. I've been finding a lot of ironies since my previous Cyberpunk video that they have a lot in common with freaking the problems people blame Bethesda for, but it's with the next article especially, they seem ironically, in regards to the game, ambitious. And this is something that Luke Stevens talks about with what he thinks is the flaws of Bethesda and Todd Howard and such. And it's ironic because they're ambitious with this. I feel like Witcher 3 is like the equivalent of Skyrim, whereas Cyberpunk is the equivalent of Fallout 76 or Fallout 4 or something, where like people are starting to notice problems. But then they kind of redeem themselves with the DLC. I also want to say a DLC shouldn't, I'm going to make a video on this too, but a DLC shouldn't be picking up the slack and be doing the heavy lifting for the main game. I still think from all the previous things I talked about in my previous Cyberpunk videos, and from what even Actman's video and manly reviews and beat 'em ups video, that they're all still relevant, as there are still a lot of those same problems there. And technically, from the development time with the patches and updates, they still had a lot of time to work things out, and it took too long, as well as the priorities that were not put forth that should have been. And it took so goddamn long for them to be. I basically would say just do everything other games are doing. Put random encounters in. Put freaking more like wandering gang members or whatever. Interesting encounters. Flying car traffic, maybe flying drone traffic or something. Do something that makes the world feel more lively. And technically, even though the newer console versions, the next generation, has been fixed for the most part, the other versions of the game are still garbage, and that technically still exists. So that's still not good. They even still have the warning on their PlayStation Store for purchasing the game in the condition it is, on PlayStation 4 at least. So then we got this thing talking about reasonable explanation for everything that went wrong, such as the crunch time. Recently there was a leak about the biggest problems presented in Cyberpunk at its launch, and that to this day we still see reflections. If their opinion is true, the situation is very serious. And I think it recounts some stuff on the crunch time and such, and mentions ambitions, ironically. Then I brought up some videos, Legacy Killa. I don't really like Legacy Killa all that much, but he did make some videos back in the day. CDPR gets exposed for E3 2018 Cyberpunk 2077 demo faked. And I looked up an article too that they apparently faked a demo at a presentation, which is not good. They also did the thing where they tell all the people who are going to sponsor the game or get early reviews to hold back on their reviews or showing much video twice now on stuff. I can't find the stuff specifically where you can technically tell that CD Projekt Red is blaming the fans and stuff. They don't have to exactly word it that way. They just have to word it in a way that definitely seems like they're trying to head in that direction with what they mean. So these are the closest things I could find, and I remember Yang Yi and I think Angry Joe covered these. But CD Projekt Red insists that Cyberpunk 2077's its launch wasn't that bad. So I'm gonna actually get that article up. It's on PC Gamer. Wasn't that bad, but it became a cool thing not to like, which we've seen with some big popular games in the past. I feel like Skyrim gets that. We went from hero to zero pretty fast. Almost 3 years after the initial release, CDPR VP of PR and Communications thinks players were too harsh on CD Projekt Red around launch, claiming that it became a cool thing not to like. Michael Platko Gilski, she is what a name, sorry if I butchered it, sat down with GamesIndustry.biz to chat about Cyberpunk's launch woes and the developer's journey to rectify its mistakes, such as the major base game overhauls due to release alongside upcoming DLC Phantom Liberty. I was personally not happy with how things turned out, said Flatcow. Cyberpunk's initial reception. I was not expecting that. I knew immediately that we had to come back. I liked the spot we were in before launch. I'm not talking about the peak of hype, but 2 years before that. We had our community, we liked them, they liked us. It was awesome to work at CD Projekt Red, despite generally favorable media previews and an geez, score of 86 on Metacritic, including our own 72% review of Cyberpunk. The weeks after its December launch would prove disastrous for CDPR. Most of us on PC get an easier go of things compared to our last-gen console pals who faced myriad of game-breaking bugs and performances issues. I find it kind of sus and ridiculous that he said he didn't expect this with how ridiculous the glitches are. Somebody had to freaking know. Somebody. I feel like this is more lies. They've already been exposed for so many from people like beat 'em ups and such. So it's no doubt. And stuff like that. Is it Inside Games or whatever? I can't remember the name of the channel, but the channel tried to defend that they technically didn't say the stuff they promised, the stuff they did, even though technically they did. Doesn't matter if they say something different now. They did at one point or a time. So, yeah. Let's see, what else? By the rather fierce criticism, says the team remained confident in its creation. Yeah, they were definitely very confident, and I remember they bragged quite a bit about their game. It's only in its actual. So they're getting pissed at the fans, basically, from what I'm getting at this, for the criticisms and being a little whiny about it. And that's not good. Like, even if you're not saying you're blaming the fans, it kind of feels like you are in a way, and it's really stupid. And I don't think that there's possibly something else where they are a little bit more open about that or forward with that, but who knows. But yeah, they've said some stupid things, ironically, too. I don't think that, like, I do want to say, too, that I'm not saying all the fan base, this is both for Bethesda and Cyberpunk's fan base. I think that there are some ridiculous people within both fan bases, and that the way the people are dealing with especially, I should probably make a separate video on this. I do see why Starfield, for example, I know Starfield always comes into this, but from what I'm about to say soon, it kind of makes sense why I mention them in the same sentence a lot of the time. But they've handled a lot of stuff on Steam reviews and what people say, the negativity, in really stupid ways. I don't think that Todd Howard wants to reflect that stuff or reflect the same opinion, but I would hope so at least. But it's not a professional or good way to handle it. And the same has happened with CD Projekt Red from time to time. And like when Bethesda became making exclusive games and Starfield was their first one, you could tell that Sony fans jumped on things with a hate boner, basically, to immediately hate. And they probably, who knows if they use advantage of the I'm gonna go back to my page where I have stuff set up, where they used this as an advantage. They could have used like the 2-hour time limit as an advantage, a refund time limit on Steam as an advantage to be able to write reviews and stuff, nasty reviews. So there's a lot of things that could play part here, and then there's, of course, YouTube channels. I remember back in the day, YouTubers who covered updates and other news on Cyberpunk, as well as just other stuff in general with fans either jumping into Twitch streams or wherever it may be, and even a trailer where Idris Elba basically says the same thing, where it's like, everybody says the same goddamn thing where it's like, the game's better now after every goddamn update. And I feel like, sadly and ironically, the fans have kind of hurt the reputation of Cyberpunk a bit by being manipulative, they also used the whole hate train from PlayStation fans. While there is definitely genuine hate for Starfield and people who are bored, there was definitely a hate train. Even when Luke Stevens has to be like, okay, the hate for Starfield is over-exaggerated, what the hell's going on? That's kind of ridiculous. That even he has to be like, what the hell's going on? This is a little overbloated and over the top. And like, I feel like the Cyberpunk fans jumped on board, and I'm not saying every Cyberpunk fan, I'm saying the ones that created the situation. We can't always know who specifically anyways, but that I could tell that Cyberpunk fans also jumped on board. They probably used this as advantage to promote the game more through recommendation videos to some people like Asmongold. This is why I don't care for Asmongold's videos. There was it felt like there's a lot of manipulation, but also there's a lot of impatience with Cyberpunk fans. Not all of them, once again, but it felt very impatient, very incompetent, and they did win. But I don't think that the game should have gotten immediate love. We should have gave it a little bit more time to soak in and think about it. I don't feel like people did enough of that, and it felt like it was overhyped again through everything. And once again, DLC shouldn't be doing most of the weightlifting for a game. This includes every game that has a DLC. The DLC should not be doing all of the weightlifting. The game should be doing its part too, and I do not feel like, after all my previous videos that I still think are relevant, and everything I described and explained, and then hopefully eventually they will put these things into the game or do something, or maybe there'll be a good sequel, the equivalent of what I've talked about with The Evil Within and Surge and their sequels. Yeah, but that's not to say that down the line they won't become the next Bethesda and have a bunch of other broken games. Hopefully they don't. But also, I mean, I'm not saying this is the exact equivalent. It is another form of just disgusting, manipulative, and just ridiculous. But if people like Gerard the Completionist can get away with what he did, his family or whatever did for 10 years, then what's to say this wouldn't for even longer? And I'm not saying that's the exact scenario. I'm just using a example that I feel like there's some disgusting things that went on here. Some dirty things. Not as dirty, of course, as that, but still another form of disgusting. And it got ridiculous, overbloated. I felt like I was the only one that saw it for the most part. I also felt like there were only so few YouTubers that actually covered this stuff. From beat 'em ups to Actman to Manly Reviews, from L321 to more. It's just been ridiculously overbloated. Once again, I want to still keep in mind that if you like Cyberpunk, continue liking Cyberpunk. If you have fun with Cyberpunk, continue having fun with Cyberpunk. Don't let my opinions change your mind. Only if you truly believe what I'm saying. You make your own choice at the end of the day. You shouldn't let somebody else make it for you. This is just stuff that I strongly believe that I really hated seeing, and I'm not going to sit idly and not speak out my mind on this stuff because it just feels ridiculous. It feels overbloated. It is genuinely annoying. It's as freaking annoying as that goddamn song I hate, the whip your hair back and forth. That's how frustrating it feels. But I'm going to go into some... Oh yeah, there's this article, CDPR defends CD Projekt Red 2077's launch. It became cool to dislike it. The CD Projekt Red's vice president of communication defends the launch of Cyberpunk 2077, saying it was better than received. CDPR being sued for lying about Cyberpunk's console issues. They had been sued in the past too over this, for the lie of the console issues. And of course I put down their apology thing, Cyberpunk to Dear Gamers, first of all, and then you can find this, I'm sure, on their original site, or just look up Cyberpunk CDPR Cyberpunk apology notice or whatever. And then there's this thing from Yang Yi. Cyberpunk creator denounces 2077 backlash. Is that telling me what to be offended by? I don't know specifically what this was about. I guess people were telling them to some stuff, or they were getting sick of something. But yeah, it was an interesting thing to bring up very briefly too. But yeah, there was a lot of stuff. While I do get that COVID did affect them to an extent, I do think that at another extent, some of the fan base and other things, as well as the game, still doesn't feel like it's where it needs to be at, and it'll probably take even longer. And then there's thinking of the word priority in reference to most things. And yeah, and I do sadly have another video coming on Cyberpunk that I want to talk more about, because I want to talk about the role-playing elements. I also want to make a video specifically that DLC should not be what carries a game. So I haven't really seen much on the new DLC. I've seen a few things, but on Phantom Liberty, but a DLC shouldn't be carrying almost the full weight of the game. I know not everybody thinks that way, but it's what it certainly feels like in everything that's been happening more recent to its launch. So, especially with how fast it gained traction and everything that went on around it. So, it does truly feel like that was doing most of the weightlifting, and that's a bit ridiculous. So, that's everything I had to cover there, and more. So, I will see you guys next time. Probably make another video. We'll see. You have a nice day, and stay awesome, and have an awesome day. Bye.